Welcome to this week's episode of the Baseball Together podcast, Baseball Family. This week we have Silver Sluggers, Platinum Glovers, and a season wrap-up right now.
9+ Us presents the Baseball Together podcast with your hosts, Blackjack Brad and Kansas City Little Big Briggy Blue Eyes. And now, Baseball Together.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Baseball Together podcast, Baseball Family. As always, I am Brad. However, Brig is out this week, so we are joined by a good friend of the show. We have with us Jason, primarily of the Not Another Sports podcast. Welcome, Jason.
Hey.
How you doing today, Jason?
I'm good. Busy day. But it's always good to wrap it up. Hanging in there, yeah. Always good to wrap it up talking with you, though.
That's awesome. I'm excited. I think we're gonna have a fun episode today. We got some good stuff going here. Thank you for stepping in and taking over. I really appreciate you filling in for us this week.
Of course, if I can do it, I'll be there.
Awesome. All right, let's get into this. Okay, first things first. We have Silver Sluggers have been announced. Okay, so last week I went through and talked to, or last week, 2 weeks ago, whatever, I went through and talked about who the nominees were, who the guys were who were up for these awards, but they've been announced. So Jason, I'll go ahead and go through and read this off, and then afterwards we can talk about it, see if there's anybody who you felt like wasn't necessarily deserving or somebody who may have been left out. All right, here we go. We have American League at catcher, Salvador Perez. First base, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So I have to pause real quick. Every time, so I listen to Dan Patrick every morning while I'm working, and they have this running joke that one of the guys was talking about Robert Griffin III, RG3.
Yeah,
but he called him Robert Griffith Jr. the Third. So because of the cadence of his name, every time I read Vladimir Guerrero Jr., I want to say Vladimir Guerrero Jr. the Third. Had to get that out there. So when it happens, there is a reasonable explanation for what just happened.
It's good to get ahead of those things.
There we go. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do here, Jason. That's what I'm trying to do. Okay, second base, we have Marcus Semien. Third base, Rafael Devers, Briggs' favorite player. Shortstop, we have Xander Bogaerts. Outfield, we had Teoscar Hernandez, Aaron Judge, and Cedric Mullins. Designated hitter, of course, as we would all expect, Shohei Ohtani won that one. Over to the National League. Jason, your favorite player, catcher Buster Posey, won this one. First base, we had Freddie Freeman. Second base, Ozzie Albies. Third base, Austin Riley. Shortstop, Fernando Tatis Jr. the Third. Outfield, Nick Castellanos, Bryce Harper, and Juan Soto. Pitcher, we had Max Fried was the winner there for the Silver Sluggers. Was there anybody there in particular for you, Jason, who you thought maybe shouldn't be with that group? Let's start there.
Looking at the group, I actually think everyone's deserving. There's no brainers. Vlad Guerrero Jr. is a no brainer. Marcus Semien, no brainer. Freddie Freeman, no brainer. If you pay attention, these guys all make sense for winning the Silver Slugger this year.
Yep, they do. The only one that I had a question with was Xander Bogaerts. Sometimes I feel like those guys in those big markets like Boston and New York get a little bit more love than maybe they deserve. Don't get me wrong, Xander Bogaerts had a fantastic season. He is a great player. But I felt like Carlos Correa, I said it last week, he had the kind of year you would expect a guy to have going like in a contract year, right? He was auditioning for every single opponent he saw, and he played out of his mind the whole year. He's absolutely outstanding.
But how much of that is just that current stink of the Astros?
Well, I feel like he was above and beyond it, though. This was a different Carlos Correa that we saw. Like, he was on not just the free agent to be tour. He was on a big time FU tour as well. That was a big part of it too, is because Alex Bregman was hurt for a lot of the year. Jose Altuve had I think he was a little bit below average for himself compared to how he has been. But Correa, he was unreal, absolutely unreal. So real quick, I have some stats to compare here. Just what they give me for Bogarts. He had 23 home runs and 79 RBIs. Correa had 26 home runs and 92 RBIs. Bogarts had an OPS of 863. And Correa was 850, so a little bit lower there, but higher in the other areas. And if that's what they're going to show and that's what they're going to compare, I mean, I am like a staunch Astro hater before the whole sign stealing thing, but I've gotten to kind of like Carlos Correa. I kind of like the ego and the attitude. It's kind of fun.
Baseball's a game. It's supposed to be fun. So
exactly, yeah. But no, like I'm surprised that I'm sitting here defending Carlos Correa, but at the same time, like I feel like he was more deserving than Bogarts.
I think you're making a good case for why he does deserve it. Clearly, those involved felt the other way.
Yeah, I guess so. And it might have been the whole anti-Astro thing because I don't see any Astros on here anywhere.
And what's interesting is this now puts him in an interesting category because this puts him closer to Jeter, A-Rod, and Cal Ripken Jr., who've won more Silver Sluggers at shortstop than him, but he's like the next in line.
Bogarts?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's a rare spot for him, especially, I mean, that's one thing that is crazy about the shortstop position right now is that at the All-Star break, a lot of Mariners fans were really upset that J.P. Crawford didn't make the team. And I was like, J.P. Crawford's a really good shortstop, but shortstop is so deep in the American League right now. That's a tough position to make it in if you want to be an all-star or first teamer. Because, I mean, it's like, I think the comparison that I made was like guards in the NBA in the Western Conference for a long time. It's like, golly, why did my guy not make the All-Star game? It's like, because you've got Chris Paul, Steph Curry, Steve Nash. Like it was so deep. It's like, where does he fit? Where does he fit on that? Because those are all Hall of Famers ahead of him.
Crawford's a guy I saw in person playing in the minors when he was in the Phil system.
I have not forgotten about that. And I thank the Phillies every day during the regular season when I see J.P. Crawford take the field because he's outstanding.
I think in his case, he's one of those guys who did better with a change of scenery.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen his numbers in Philly and here. And like Jerry DiPoto specifically said, he's gotten a little bit better every year offensively, but where he makes his money is defensively because he was a runner-up with the Gold Gloves this year. He won it last year. Like that's where he's going to make his money for his career. Because he's awesome. He's so good defensively.
I mean, comparatively, as far as moves the Phils have made where the player's done better, I would compare him to Michael Bourne, who was a Phils player who they shipped out to Houston. In the Brad Lidge deal, actually.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And he's far from a household name, but he was a heck of a player for the Astros when he was playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. All right, let's go on to Platinum Glove award winners. So for those of you who are not sure what the Platinum Glove is, this is the best defensive player in each league. So there's every position awards the best player at their position, a Gold Glove, and then the best among those is given the Platinum Glove. This year, Carlos Correa got his first Platinum Glove, and Nolan Arenado was awarded his fifth Platinum Glove. And to me, that fits. I mean, that's perfect for him because he's the guy you would expect to win that. I don't feel like I've seen any degradation of his defensive ability. I mean, if you're on Instagram or Facebook, you're going to see Nolan Arenado highlights just about every night.
Right?
He's doing something every single day that most guys in the league can't do. So I think that's a big deal for him.
It is, and it speaks highly to his abilities. And the only reason Colorado had buyer's remorse was the amount of money they gave him, because it wasn't his play on the field.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it certainly was. Well, the thing that's crazy is that he's only 30 and he's won 5. That's how long he's been that good. I will say this though, is that there's somebody in the A's organization. I can't remember who it is. It was like 2 years ago. They said this. He said that Matt Chapman was the best third baseman he's ever seen, and he's played with Nolan Arenado. So that, I thought that was like the highest of praise you could give anybody.
Right.
He's given to Matt Chapman. Although he did kind of have a down year this year. I think he was dealing with some injuries. But at the same time, he is a highly sought after player this offseason because the A's are having a fire sale. The A's are getting rid of some arbitration eligible players, and Matt Chapman is high on the list of guys who are sought after.
Speaking of this offseason, it seems like it's going to be a flooded market this year. With the amount of teams who didn't extend offers to players who you assumed were getting offers, it's crazy, and that could come into other things we talk about tonight. So I don't want to get too far ahead of anything.
Well, let's go ahead and go there right now. I mean, I think we kind of wrapped up the platinum gloves. I saw a headline that talked about how Corey Seager and Marcus Semien are both expected to sign with new teams before the collective bargaining agreement expires at midnight on December 2nd. So as soon as the clock strikes midnight and it's December 2nd, that's when it expires. So, and both of these guys were extended qualifying offers by their teams. I believe that's a 1 year, $18 million deal. Let me look that up and verify that. 1 year, $18.4 million offer. They have until November 17th to accept or reject that. And once they reject it like they're expected to, they are going to be free agents. So that'll essentially give them 2 weeks from that point to sign with a new team, which I feel like is pretty quick given what we've seen in the last couple of years. I don't know. I don't know if they will, especially being Boris guys. Like we know that Scott Boras can get a deal done if he really wants to, but he's not one who's typically going to rush into a deal because he's going to try to squeeze every ounce of blood out of the rock that is a major league organization, right?
Something I'm seeing, and it actually makes a lot of sense. Brian Cashman has been quoted as saying that the Yankees payroll has latitude, that they have wiggle room to make a big splash. Mm-hmm. And then I'm seeing that, these guys are being linked to the Yankees right now. That's more than likely where they're going to end up.
They could. Well, and so there are other teams.
Yankees thing to do.
It is a Yankees thing. It is a very Yankees thing to do, and it's why everybody hates them. But this is the thing too: is that the Rangers have specifically said that they're going to increase their payroll by $100 million this next year. The Mariners have said they're increasing payroll this next year. That this is the first time Jerry Dipoto has had basically freedom to spend, and they've said that they're going after Marcus Semien, like he's their big target.
Timeout. Increasing payroll does not guarantee wins.
No, it
doesn't. Because the Phillies just finally had a season over 500.
It doesn't, but what it does is it doesn't even guarantee competition, like being competitive, right? What it does is it shows the fans that you're willing to put forward the money that it takes to try to be competitive, though, right? Because we've seen the Yankees in the past where they spent all the money in the world that they had that was available, and they won a World Series. We've also seen them fail to win a World Series doing that. We've seen teams not spend any money. The Rays, the A's, almost every single year make the playoffs without spending any money. The Rays made it to the World Series last year without spending any money. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to win, but it's almost like an act of goodwill telling your team that, like, we're all in on this, that we're willing to spend the money to bring in an impact player if we have to and give them a max, quote unquote max contract. That's not really a thing in baseball, but it's more of an act of goodwill, I think. And in this case, the fact that you're like, we will negotiate with a Boris client, that's a pretty big deal, because if I'm not spending money, I'm staying away from those guys with a 10-foot pole, at least.
Yeah. And
So I feel like it's more symbolic than anything. But sorry, go ahead.
No, what's funny about Seager is on the Philly Baseball Together pod, Tori and I were literally just talking about how he's the guy we kind of were hoping the Phils would sign, and that's probably not happening.
Well, you know what though? Like, this is the thing: is it depends on who you talk to about the Yankees getting a guy, because Yankee fans think they're going to get everybody. Like, I saw on Twitter today. I don't spend a whole lot of time on Twitter, but I happened to be on there today. And
90% of Twitter for any topic is a cesspool. So we got
it is. But I feel like this is like what you're getting from fans, though. Still, is that some guy he tweeted out this picture, and it was like my proposed Yankees starting lineup for next year, and they had what was it? It was they're like trade for Soto. So they had Soto in right field, Judge in center, and Gallo in left. And then they had DJ LeMahieu at third, Seager at second, Semien Seager at short, Semien at second, and Freddie Freeman at first. I'm like, dude, like there's not even enough money in Major League Baseball to do that, much less on your payroll. And like, it's not realistic. Like, those guys aren't going to take discounts just so they can go wear pinstripes and play for the Yankees. It's not a thing. It's not a thing anymore.
It's not a thing, and a lot of guys are really happy to stay where they're at.
They are. Like, I could see the Braves being like, you know what, Freddie? We appreciate you. You're our clubhouse guy. What do you want?
And by all accounts, he has stated he wants to stay a Brave. He doesn't want to leave.
Yeah. And that could be one of those things, though. Like, I want to stay a Brave, but at the right price, right?
In any professional sport, that can always be the case. I hate Freddie Freeman for being a Philly killer, but I absolutely appreciate and respect him as a player and just as a person. He seems like a really great guy.
As I say, you hate Freddie, but you love Frederick.
Oh my God! There we go.
Two different people, basically. I mean.
Oh, that killed me. That's good.
But anyways, no. So I saw this list. Seeger, and like I said, Seeger and Simeon were included on this, and it included guys like Max Scherzer and Carlos Rodon, who are both clients of Scotty B. And then you got Robbie Ray, Clayton Kershaw, Kevin Gausman, and Marcus Stroman, who are not Boris clients, who are also expected to sign, which most of those guys are impact players. I don't know how much of an impact player Stroman is these days, but he kind of had that stink of the Mets on him. But I'd still take Kershaw, even at his age. I would love to have Scherzer. Like, having a pitcher on your staff of Scherzer's caliber, even Kershaw's caliber. Like, I know he's like taken a dip and everything over the last few years, but I would love to have those guys on my staff. What concerns me with
Kershaw is the injuries. How long can he stay healthy? Just looking at my favorite team, the Phils, they definitely should invest in another starting pitcher. I've seen everything as crazy as they're going to trade Nola to the Yankees for Gallo because Nola's on the decline. I don't know if I'd want an aging, no matter, he's great. He's a great pitcher. Not saying he's not, but I think there's injury baggage that comes along with him that if you're truly a competitor and you're going to be in October, you're probably going to sign him. But I don't think he's someone of a team like the Phils who are still trying to figure out how to get back to October.
Well, and so this is the thing too that I think is funny. Is like Nola's a good pitcher. Like, I can appreciate that. But at the same time, like, it would kind of, to me, feel like it's the same kind of thing as like the Andrew Heaney deal. Like, Heaney, when the Yankees traded for him, my first thought was like, okay, first, why would you trade with the Angels to get a pitcher? Of all the positions that you could trade for with the Angels, like, everybody knows that the Angels don't have good pitching. Like, that's their problem, Why would you take one of those guys? And he came to New York and he stunk. And I don't know how Austin Nola has been, or not Austin Nola. It is Austin Nola. right?
Aaron, Austin's his brother.
I know I get them mixed up all the time. Austin used to play for the Mariners. So Aaron Nola. He I mean, he's not a bad pitcher, right?
He's had some issues the last few seasons. I mean, he definitely has a September issue. But this year was really bad, and there's been so much turnover in the coaching staff of the Phils that I'm sure that plays a role into it.
It might. Some guys just struggle in September, though. Like you say, Kikuchi for the Mariners this year. He was an all-star. He was named to the all-star team because he had such an outstanding first half. But it's because the Mariners went with a 6-man rotation, and the plan the entire time was after the all-star break go back to a 5-man rotation, and he stunk to the point that he did not make his last start of the season. That Kyle Anderson. Golly, I'm drawing a blank now. Anyway, Anderson for the Mariners went on 3 days rest instead of Kikuchi on full rest. Like that's how bad he got at the end of the season because he couldn't handle the grind into September.
So Nola is a career 3.68 ERA pitcher. This past season he was a 4.63 ERA pitcher. He went 9 for 9. This was not a good year for him. And he was coming into this season as he was still considered the Phil's ace. And I think it was his job to lose, and he lost it to Wheeler. And Wheeler had a fantastic year. There's a reason he's up for the Cy Young. Albeit his kind of late season struggles when the Phils were struggling, he still, everything he did up to that point, I think negates that to some degree. But Nola was a totally different pitcher this year.
And sorry, Tyler Anderson was who I was drawing a blank on before. Tyler Anderson. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens with these guys going into this crazy offseason. Like the CBA, Brig and I have been talking about this for like 2 years now, that this is going to be a mess. I was actually surprised at how many guys did hit the market. I think I saw 200. And some of those guys were guys who didn't play this season, right? But they haven't officially retired. So they're still free agents, whatever. But I was really surprised at some of the guys who opted out of the last year of their contract, who did not accept the qualifying offer. Because to me, when a CBA expires, there's instability. Like you don't know what's going to happen. And I texted my buddy Jewel about it. He's been on here a couple times with us. He's been on the Seattle Baseball Together podcast with me a couple times. And he's like, dude, why would they? They're talking no cap with the salary floor. I'm like, well, yeah, but they also haven't reached an agreement. Like the deal breaker could be the cap. And then you got a bunch of guys who are taking pay cuts so that teams can get under the cap.
Right.
And it's like you're playing with fire there, thinking that maybe you're going to get a massive deal because there's not going to be a cap, but then there's also a risk that there could be a cap, and then or even like a maximum contract, and they're chopping it down. You know, they're not going to do 13 years, $450 million anymore like Mike Trout has. So, or tremendous risk. I'd have stuck it out.
I mean, the risk also could be with a long contract, because a lot of guys want the long contract now. It's going to be all backdated, back end pay.
It could be, yeah. And this is one thing that I thought was really interesting was I was reading this article. It was talking about the CBA, and it was saying that the average length of an MLB player's career has gotten considerably shorter over the last 30 years. That the average amount of service time that guys get, like it was down to like a little over 4 years. About 15 years ago, I think is what it was. I'm trying to find it exactly. But within the last 2 years, the average amount of service time that guys get, it was a little over 3 years. So guys have a 3-year window to make money. Right. And the problem with that is that you've got guys like Mike Trout, Fernando Tatis, Bryce Harper. Your top level earners are taking a bunch of money from these guys at the bottom line. But the problem is that you've got agents like Scott Boras who are like, no, these guys, they deserve to make as much money as they're willing to be paid. But then these other guys at the bottom, they're all stuck making the minimum, which, you know, is nothing to flick your nose at. It's like $560 million. $560,000. Yeah, it's $560,000 for a year. It's like I would do a lot to earn that money just for 1 year, you know?
Well, now we know what you would do for a Klondike bar.
You're right. Exactly. But still, though, like this is the thing that's frustrating is that you've got like a lot of people who are arguing on behalf of these top earners. Like, well, there's so few of those guys. And I understand that there are guys who are getting big fat contracts who deserve it. But at the same time, you've got to take care of your low end earners. They're just not going to even care. Like, there's going to be a major problem. So, anyway.
No, you're right.
So, and one last thing on the CBA before we go into our last topic here. I actually saw this additional graphic talking about previous work stoppages. So there's been 8 before this year, when we're certain there's going to be a lockout. So in 72 there was a strike, lasted 13 days, and there were only 86 games lost. Not a big deal. And then 73, 76, both 17 days on lockouts, no games lost. A strike in 80. That lasted 8 days. There were no games lost. In 81, there was a strike that lasted 50 days. 713 games lost. Now, this obviously is not like...
That's the year where they ended up splitting the season, and the first half season winner played the second half season winner to go into the World Series, is I believe how they did it.
A very minor league way to solve things.
Because that was the year the Expos were predicted to win the World Series.
Or was it 80?
No, 81. Because 80 was
81.
when the Phils won
right
against the Royals, and I was not alive for it, but I know it off the back of the back of my hand.
You want to know something funny? Real quick, this is completely unrelated except for the fact the Phils won the World Series in 1980. So the other day, I follow Baseball Reference on Instagram because I'm a nerd, and they tweeted out a screenshot of somebody's Baseball Reference profile. All it was accolades and jersey numbers. And so show their accolades, and one of them was the 1980 World Series. And on Baseball Reference, when they have their jersey numbers, it has like kind of like of like what it would look like when their jersey's retired in the stadium, right? Like the circle with like this one was red with pinstripes. Off the top of my head, I didn't know who won the 1980 World Series. I was not alive back then. So I was sitting there looking at it, I was like, 1980 World Series. That looks like that looks an awful lot like a Phillies jersey. And I was looking at the other accolades, and so sorry, I'm trying to pull it up so I can get exactly what they were, because it was Jason. I'm gonna be honest with you. I was really proud of myself in this moment, so I'm gonna brag a little bit. But it said 3-time All-Star, 3-time MVP, 12-time All-Star, 1980 World Series, 10-time Gold Glove, 6-time Silver Slugger, World Series MVP, and Hall of Fame, numbers 22 and 20. And I said, you know what? That looks like that might be Mike Schmidt. So I looked it up. Bang.
22 was his minor league number.
And apparently what he wore when he first made his debut.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was partially right about how they did the playoffs in 81. So it was for each division in each league, it was the first half winner, second half winner. They played each other. So for the AL East, it was the Yankees and Milwaukee. And then the West, it was Oakland and Kansas City. The East, it was Philly and Montreal. West, it was LA and Houston.
Okay. And that's something that a lot of minor league teams will, like minor league leagues will do, because you have completely different team from the start of the season to the end of the season. So it gives teams a chance who were really good.
Ton of sense in minor league ball.
It does. Yeah. But anyway, so back to this. And then there was another strike in 85 that lasted 2 days. Fantastic. That would be nice if that happened here, but I don't think it's going to. And then in 90, there was a lockout that lasted 32 days. Then the infamous strike in 94 that went on for 232 days, and we lost 938 games. And then now here we are on the precipice of another lockout. John Heyman with MLB Network, he said, management source on the state of CBA negotiations, as bad as I've ever seen it. Prediction, 2.5 months of pain.
And what's sad about this is there are still a lot of sports fans who are still very bitter about the lockout in 94, 95.
Yep. Brig talks all the time about how his father-in-law stopped watching baseball until he came into the family. And that, it was probably almost 20 years. Not watching baseball.
I was 10 going to be 11 during that time frame. It took me a while to get back.
Did it?
Because it just took baseball away from me. Yeah.
I remember I was 8 and my dad and I were watching SportsCenter. We watched the last team. They showed the last team get off the field and they're like, that's it for baseball this year. And my dad explained to me like what was going on and that there wasn't going to be a World Series that year. And I cried as an 8-year-old being like, no World Series. Like I had just come off of watching the Joe Carter home run, while we were getting ready to move our family. And then now this is like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. So I really hope that they can figure something out because it's going to be really bad for baseball. We have our obvious issues with Rob Manfred, and we don't have any confidence in his ability to reach a reasonable, a resolution in a reasonable amount of time. So we've been really pessimistic.
Bob Costas.
Well, yeah, And the thing that's unfortunate is that the guy who deserves the job is the one who doesn't want it.
Yeah, I know.
So, but anyway, all right. Last thing here before we go into a break, the Giants have extended Max Kepler and his biceps. Gabe Kapler. I don't know why I said Max Kepler. That's weird. The Giants have extended Gabe Kapler and his biceps for 2 years. Now you're more familiar with Kepler than I am. Go ahead.
Kepler is not an East Coast guy. I mean, and that's something we talk about on the NASPod a lot, not another sports podcast, NASPod for short. Anyone listening, we talk about how East Coast sports fans and teams and media is an entirely different beast from everywhere else in America with sports. And Gabe Kapler is just not an East Coast guy. And he stuck out like a sore thumb. He made a lot of really odd moves his first year as a manager in Philly. And I don't think he ever recovered from those odd moves in the eyes of the fans and the media. He tried, and I give him all the credit in the world. But I can tell you right now, as a Phillies fan who regularly reads Phillies Nation, there's a bunch of them. This ball's out of here, and the Reddit and the Phillies subreddit. Everyone was predicting he was going to eventually end up with the Giants at some point because he's close to the Giants GM. He's close to the Giants owner. He's someone that they wanted, but they just couldn't get at that time. So everything he's doing in San Fran makes sense for San Fran. It makes sense for Philadelphia. It makes sense for San Fran. He fits there. He's clearly having an impact on those players. That's great for him. Mm-hmm. He's not my cup of tea. That's cool. I don't like tea. They do. So good for them. Well,
and it's a little bit closer to the source, I think, for his coconut oil as well. Just being on the coast
what?
There,
I should have said I don't like coconut oil, but I was on a roll.
It's not my brand of coconut oil. That's fine. That's just fine.
I like avocado oil,
But I mean, like you said, he's a perfect fit for the organization, perfect fit for those players. He did an outstanding job this year, outplayed everybody's expectations. We'll get to that in a little bit. But man, speaking of tea, have you ever watched Ted Lasso, Jason?
No, and I really should because I'm fairly certain I'm going to like it.
You will love it. First off, it's outstanding, hilarious.
Because I know he does the "What's Up with That" dance in it. So.
Does he? I haven't seen that part yet. But anyways, no, the thing that I think is funny is that I hate tea, absolutely hate it. And so he goes in his first day and the owner of the football team, offers him a cup of tea. He goes, yeah, let's go ahead and try it. And spits it out. He's like, I'm going to be honest with you. That tastes terrible. Tastes like dirty water. Not going to drink it. And then into the second season, she goes to offer him another. Care to give tea another try, Ted? Oh no, we're on a lifetime hiatus. That my man, he gets it. It does taste like dirty water. Tea's
I like iced tea, but
to each his own.
Mine's got to be prepackaged and more than likely from Arizona tea, which is not from Arizona. So
it's
from New York.
All right, with that, let's take a quick break and we'll come back and we will wrap up the 2021 MLB season.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I never get back with me. Root, root, root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Shop kids' baseball shirts at 9plusS.com.
The Another Sports Podcast is the home of sports talk for everyone. Every other week, you can catch David and Jason as they talk about all things sports, from current events to classic moments and everything in between. You can find the Another Sports Podcast on Anchor.fm, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, and more. Please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review.
Welcome back, baseball family. Jason and I are going to go ahead and wrap things up. Sorry, Jason, I almost called you Brig there.
I wish I was as handsome with a full head of hair like Brig. So
I'm so jealous of his salad, like so much. It's bad.
That is just it's beautiful hair. he could be in commercials with that hair. Honestly,
he could. It is flowing and lethal. All right. Anyway, sorry. So Jason and I are going to go ahead and wrap up the 2021 MLB season. We're going to talk about surprises, letdowns, some of our favorite moments, and really just anywhere else this conversation tends to take us. So, Jason, what was your biggest surprise this season that you saw?
My annoyance with their fan base notwithstanding, I was really surprised by the Nats fire sale because they still had that core unit from 2019 that won a World Series.
Mm-hmm.
That blew me away.
I was really surprised by that too. I couldn't believe it. Like at the trade deadline, just like so and so traded from the Nats. So and so was like, you serious right now? Like I know they weren't winning, but still, like you're gonna trade Trey Turner for that and Max Scherzer. Like I get Scherzer, but still, you're trading away Trey Turner for that. That dude is a top 3 shortstop, second baseman, whatever position, top 3 infielder in Major League Baseball.
Right?
Like you can put him at short and second base and he'll be top 3. He's that good, especially offensively. I mean, he's hit for the cycle 3 times in his career. Come on. Like
no,
yeah, I would have been
that blew me away. And again, I'm not a fan of the Nats, but
right.
Objectively looking at it, they still had, I mean, outside of Rendon, they had that 19 team still.
Yeah, they did. They did. And I would be really upset if I was a Nats fan for sure, because they just gave up on the season at that point. And not just gave up on this season, they gave up on next season as well. You still got Juan Soto, which is an excellent centerpiece. But as we know, baseball is not a one-man sport. Juan Soto is not going to win you a World Series by himself. As close as he can get you there, batting 340, and being on the verge of being an MVP, he'll do everything he can to get you there, but he's not going to be able to do it by himself because that's just how baseball works. So
right.
That was crazy. That was a big surprise. I didn't even think about that until you said it though, because my biggest surprise, honestly, was the Giants the entire season. And I've said this a bunch of times this year. I just kept saying I'm waiting for them to fall off. And they didn't until the ALDS when they played the Dodgers. And even then, it took 7 games and a really crappy call. 5 games and a really crappy call to end their season.
Well, and here's the thing. The Giants made some smart moves at the trade deadline to enhance that team. I think getting Brian at the trade deadline from the Cubs during their an unsurprising fire sale. Sorry, Denise.
Right.
It was a smart move to get him based on his experience.
Mm-hmm.
That boosted that team's abilities. just mentally, because he was there and he could help those guys get there.
Yep. And I can't believe either what the Giants have said about Chris Bryant. They weren't impressed with his defense in center field, right field, and the third base, and they don't think his swing is going to age well. To me, that's like justifying breaking up with a girl who's like awesome. You know, like her ponytail some days was like a little bit off, and then like I don't think she's going to age well. It's like, dude, 20 years she's going to be bomb. What are you talking about?
You're going to be at your high school reunion and be like, why?
What did I do?
I mean, the rumor I'm hearing is he's going to end up with the Phils.
That would be cool.
Him and Sterling Marte are the big gets for the Phils, is the rumor I'm hearing.
Oh my gosh, I want Sterling Marte so bad in Seattle. Like, I know that Seattle outfield, I've said it a lot, is getting super crowded with like talent and potential and everything. But I feel like if that team's going to win the World Series in 2023, like I think they do, they might need to bring in a vet, and I think Marte could be one of those guys because that dude is consistent and all he does is hit. He's so good. He was awesome. He balled out with the A's. Outstanding.
Well, if it makes you feel better, in 2 years after he's been with the Phils and his swing falls off, and then Philadelphia's completely disgusted with him, he's going to go get signed by the Mariners and have a career season. And
no, he'll forget how to hit when he goes to Seattle. Everybody forgets how to hit when they get to Seattle. I don't know what it is. It's weird, but
this is like the hating on our own team episode. That's really what it's become.
It's the weirdest thing. Like Adrian Beltre came to Seattle. I believe it was from LA, from the Dodgers, and he straight up forgot how to play baseball. Like he was a fine third baseman. He was a decent hitter, but he was not the guy he was before he got there. Jack Wilson, who was a really good defensive third baseman, got to Seattle and hit like $125 for an entire year. And I was walking around college like every single day, be like, what's Jack Wilson doing playing third base for the Mariners when I could go play the same level of defense that he is and hit $125 and make the league minimum? Like, they'd be paying me less. That'd be a bargain for them. I'm like, what's going on? It's like, it's so upsetting that dude forgot how to hit in like such a way he did. Sean Figgins ended his career in Seattle because he forgot how to play baseball.
God, that's a name I haven't heard in ages.
After having been a borderline all-star in Anaheim. Jeez. Unreal what happened to that guy.
I haven't. That's a flashback name. I'm sorry.
That's what I'm saying, man. He went to Seattle and disappeared because he forgot how to play baseball. That is a thing that happened there. The only guy who I can think of who got to Seattle and was equally as good when he was there and then continued to be great after he left was Gene Segura.
Yes. Well,
Gene the hitting machine.
Segura's base running mistake that cost McCutchen a season with the Phils notwithstanding.
Well, he was never the best base runner, but the dude could hit.
He's been a joy to watch. He's frustrating sometimes, but overall he's been consistent with the Phils, and I have no complaints about him.
And that was always my thing with him, is that he was consistent and you knew he was going to get on base when you needed him to.
And actually, he did really well in the leadoff spot a couple times this season. And maybe that's where, if they get Marte, that's who's probably going to be leading off. But Gene's just as good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be down with either of those guys. But D. Gordon, another guy. Anyway, so there's like a list, right? There's a whole list. Anyway, so those are our surprises. You had the Nats, I had the Giants. Was there a letdown? What was your biggest letdown this season?
The NL East.
I mean, it was supposed to be a competitive division, right?
It was supposed to be the division to watch, and it went from must-see TV to like Saturday night prime time
so
that no one cares about.
It was a division to watch because it was so close. You didn't know who was going to win it. I was paying close attention to the NL East at the end of the season because I was like, okay, now everybody's still in this. Nobody's going to win 90 games, but everybody's still in this. They're in the mix here. Here we go.
Yeah, everyone was in the mix because they were that bad. I
know, that's what I'm saying.
I'm legitimately surprised the Braves rode that hot streak to win the World Series, because they weren't even over 500 at the trade deadline, which tells you how bad the Mets tanked, how bad the Phils tanked. because both of those teams were in first place. I'll beat the Phils for a week and the Mets for most of the first half.
Mm-hmm.
And look at the money the Mets spent in the offseason to just met the bed and boo their own fans.
And during the season, they spent money to met the bed. They continue to do that. So about your Phils, though, man. So I think I told you about this, that I went to a game where the Phillies were in town here, right? When they're playing the D-backs.
Oh, you mean where they lost 5-7 to the D-backs?
They got swept by the D-backs, and I was confused. So I went because I wanted to see Bryce Harper play. Like, that's specifically why we got those $10 Tuesday tickets for that week, because I wanted to watch Bryce Harper. I'm a big Harper fan, and he hit a home run in like the 5th inning. And I looked at Wilson, my son. I was like, "Well, we can go now if you're ready." I came and saw what I wanted to see, But we ended up hanging out for a while. But anyways, no, that Phillies team, I think I've said it again. I've said it before, but watching them play that game was so weird. That there were all these guys, recognizable names, guys who I expected to just like go light this terrible D-backs team up, and they couldn't do it. They never got into a groove in that game. That it was like you just kept waiting for it to happen, but it never did.
They are such a Jekyll and Hyde team, because they can play like contenders against the best baseball teams, and then they just look like the freaking Washington Generals playing the Harlem Globetrotters against the absolute worst teams in baseball. Like, he's spinning the ball on his finger, just swat it out of his hand. Like, sorry.
No, I get it, because you know what? So we were talking during the break about how
That's such
the Mariners
a deep Simpsons reference, by the way.
That's a good one. That's good. I like that. But so you and I, so for those obviously listening right now, like Jason and I were talking between segments, like during the break, about the Mariners, how they came really close to making the playoffs in 2016. But I think it was that year that the Astros lost 100 games. And I'm 99% sure that despite the Astros losing 100-ish games, I think they won the season series against the Mariners that year. A team that was like on the brink of the playoffs just could not beat this terrible Astros team. And that is where my hatred for the Astros comes from. Because it wasn't just that year. It was plus or minus 3 on both sides of that year. And it was just blew my mind. Absolutely insane.
It seems like since Halladay pitched his no-no against the Marlins in 2010, that the Phils have never been able to win a series against the Marlins. It seems like at least they'll win 1 and then they'll lose like 3. Like, the Marlins are the biggest thorn in their side, and the Marlins are always consistently one of the worst teams in baseball. But whatever.
Yeah, which is weird to me. You think
weird.
They are weird. They have their priorities out of whack. That the warm weather teams are generally not very good. Even though you'd think that guys would be wanting to go there, right? Like, I don't want to play in snow in September or in April. Like, why are guys going, besides the history and the money, why are guys going to New York and Boston when if they go to Miami and they draw every game, they win a lot, they win a few World Series, that payroll will go up and it will become a more desirable destination, right? Like, it's weird.
So, odd sidebar, how many lifer Twins fans do you think suddenly miss the Metrodome when they're sitting in April and there's snow coming down in the middle of a Twins game?
I honestly, like, if I was a Twins fan, I would have been furious that they didn't put a retractable roof on that place. Like, even if it's cold, like in Seattle, the retractable roof is different there than it is anywhere else, because the D-backs and the Astros and I believe the Marlins, basically there, and I know the Rangers, but when their roof comes on, it's like it creates like a self-contained box, right? In Seattle, it's literally a retractable umbrella because you still have cross breezes that can come through. All it is it's just a cover. Everything is still open. You can still see out into the city. Everything. It's just an umbrella. Everything else is a self-contained box. And so I'm surprised that they didn't at least do that. in Minnesota. That has always surprised me since they built that stadium, because you've got to have some protection from the snow in April and probably in September too. But so in 2016, so the Astros won 84 games that year. But I guess it was 2013 when they lost 111. That's the one that I keep thinking of. But still, I don't think that the Mariners beat them like at all that year, because they were terrible. I know the Mariners didn't lose 111 games. They should have been beating them some of that time, but they weren't. But anyway, so letdown, right? That's where we are.
Yeah.
My biggest letdown. What's that?
I said we're on yours.
Okay, that's what I thought. Anyway, let's get back on track. So my biggest letdown has got to be the Padres, the San Diego Padres, because we were all expecting them with their pitching and Tatis and Hosmer and Machado, expecting everybody to come through and for them to compete with the Dodgers at the very least. I would have expected them to be in the hunt with the Dodgers and Giants for most of the season, instead of feeding into those 108, 109 win seasons that those teams had. Was really disappointed with the way things turned out for them, and some of it was bad luck. Tatis had that shoulder injury that sidelined him for a considerable amount of time, right? Like he missed quite a bit of time, and they ended up moving him out to center field, which kind of made sense. But I was kind of, the point that I made, I think I had Denise on at the time. I was like, a guy who plays that like that doesn't know how to slow down in the outfield. He's still going to dive for balls. He's going to crash into the wall, and he's still going to hurt his shoulder. Like, you're not protecting him. You're putting him in a difficult situation, especially in center field.
And moving him to center field exposed some ego issues with him.
Well, this is the thing, is that out
and
of
it's
all
something
the
that we talked about when you were last on NASPod.
Yeah, it did, and I don't think it was so much that as it was, he was probably frustrated because a guy like that, like, he's grown up his entire life, and I'm sure baseball has been easy for him, right? And then for him to go out to center field and not do well, that's got to be really frustrating, so that's going to boil over like what we talked about on your podcast about him being frustrated arguing balls and strikes. And Machado got into it. Machado's like, it's not about you, it's about the team, which, because if he did have that big of issues with his personality and had that big of a problem in the clubhouse, he could have straight up told the manager, no, I'm not moving to center field. I am a shortstop. That is where you will play me. He makes enough money. He could have done that. And they could, and if they really got into it, they could have said, okay, then we will bench you. We will pay you to sit on the bench. You can come and pinch hit. You can come pinch run because we could use your legs. But I think if it had been that big of an issue and he's really that selfish, that might have been what it came to. But I do feel like center field is the hardest of the outfield positions to play because you're watching the ball come straight off the bat, right? At least in right and left, there's a little bit more leeway that you can kind of tell like which way it's going. In right field, and it's a right-handed batter, the ball's going to be tailing, so to play to your left a little bit, based off where you think the ball's going to go. And same thing in left field. But anyway, guys who aren't natural outfielders or aren't even natural center fielders struggle at that position at the big league level. D. Gordon did it a couple years ago. The Mariners brought him in, and they said, we think you're athletic enough. You can do it. He couldn't. By the end of the season, Robbie Cano was suspended for PEDs. D. Gordon was back at second base. This year, Jared Kellenick, who is a natural corner outfielder, was put in center field, and there were a lot of growing pains for him for the Mariners. There were a lot of fans like, what's this guy doing? He's terrible. He stinks. Like, well, he's not a natural center fielder. He's a corner outfielder, and the Mariners know that. So they're forgiving those mistakes because it's just what's going to happen when the guys are in the position at the big league level. And so I think we saw that with Tatis, and I think he was frustrated, like I said, because he's one of those guys who baseball has always been easy for him. And even at the big league level, hitting, big league pitching for him has been relatively easy. So I'm sure he was super frustrated by that. But anyway, for me, the Padres overall, top to bottom, that was a major letdown.
Well, I mean, we still know that there's clearly issues somewhere in that team because you don't fire the manager as quickly as they did unless there's issues in that team. and he just happened to be the guy taking the fall.
Yeah. Yeah, and they brought in Bob Melvin. Brought in Bob Melvin, and I think he's going to turn that thing around. I think they're going to be back contending for the playoffs next year, despite any injuries that we see, because he's done an outstanding job with the A's for a decade. It's been awesome.
That's true. That's true.
All right, Jason, for you, biggest moments. What was the biggest moment for you this season?
The Phils finished over 500. I mean, there should be a parade right now because of it. I mean, sorry. I'm so cynical about my own team. I'm sorry.
We all are.
And then you let me host a podcast about them once a month.
I know. And it's fantastic, by the way. Go check out the Philly Baseball Together podcast. He and Tori do an awesome job. Anyway,
we definitely deviated about O.J. Simpson on the last episode. So
I know, I was laughing so hard.
I don't even know how we got there anymore. It's been so long. Anyway, God, Trey Turner had that sweet slide at home against the Phils. He looked like he was gliding on air the way he came home on that.
Dude,
slide.
that dude is so smooth. Like, that was outstanding. That was so fun to watch. I watched that replay over and over and over again. In fact, I pulled up that Instagram video when I was coaching Little League in fall ball, and I was like, guys, this is like when you get really good, you might be able to slide like this. And I showed him like, whoa, that's so cool. Like, it is cool. He sat and watched like 5 times in a row. It was like a gif of it, I think, is actually what we watched. But yeah.
As a Phils fan, it was hard to have big moments to enjoy this year because there weren't a lot of big moments to enjoy this year. I mean, Harper's season alone was something to enjoy, but it wasn't really a moment. It was just a season just continuing to be built upon with just great play. Yeah, I got nothing because I'm a Phillies fan, man. That was an awful question to ask me.
It's funny to say that though, because they still finished over 500. Like,
yeah, they did.
80.
Finally.
I mean, for me as a Mariners fan, once the Mariners hit 82 wins, I was like, boom, success, progression. There it is. That's what we want. But really, like, for the Mariners this year, though, the absolute biggest moment for the Seattle Mariners, I would have to say, came on one of the last few days of the season. The Mariners were in that hunt, in the AL wildcard hunt for that second spot, which is funny because this team, like, if they had not had such a terrible May and been no hit twice that month, they'd have made the playoffs.
They were.
Like,
I mean, and
they were right there.
As your friend, it hurt me to see them not make the playoffs.
I'm
not going to lie to you.
I do appreciate that. But so it was, I got to find out exactly which game it was. Okay, so it was the second to last day of the season, Saturday, October 2nd, against the Angels. The Mariners ended up winning that game 6-4. But there was a specific play, and this was legit, man. Like, legitimately the biggest play of the Mariners season because it kept it alive. Like, the Mariners were down. Looks like the score was 3-4. Okay, yeah, it was 3-4. The Angels were up with 2 outs. And actually, this is one of the funny things. You got former Mariner Steve Cishek on the mound facing Mitch Haniger in a full count with the bases loaded. Haniger singles through the shortstop and third base hole, and Jake Bauers and J.P. Crawford come in and score. The Mariners go up 5-4, ended up winning the game 6-4, and that other run was driven in by the very next batter, happened to be Kyle Seager, one of the last things he did as a Mariner, to seal the deal there. But that moment right there with Mitch Haniger, after everything he's been through the last 3 years, he didn't play it all last year because he had a back issue. And then he missed a good chunk of the 2019 season because he fouled the ball off and ruptured a testicle. Like, that is a terrible reason to miss baseball. Like terrible reason
That's
to miss anything.
Painful reason to miss baseball.
Yeah, incredibly. And so like he said that if you haven't seen it, he wrote a great article for the Players Tribune about his struggle coming back and about the team and everything. In fact, I think I'll pull it up again. I'll put the link in the description. It should be down there for you now. Check it out because it's really good. It is a great article put together by a guy who has always been liked by the fans, but this season got to be a fan favorite because he was the one who stepped up late in the season and was driving in the production that the team needed. Jared Kellenick came through in September, was the best hitter out of all the rookies in the American League in September, but it was like he was so low that like going up wasn't really that much, it wasn't that far to go. But Haniger was the guy who kept this thing going. He was one of the vocal leaders in the clubhouse, and he's not really known for that. So he's somebody who, like I said, got to be a fan favorite in a really short amount of time after being somebody who was well liked. And this moment right here was like the time that it's like, okay, Haniger is going to be the guy. He's going to be the new captain. He's going to be the one to lead this team to the World Series. And it was because of that moment. It was outstanding. It was huge for Mariners fans, just enormous.
I just got to chime in here quick. Real personally, for me, my biggest moment was just going to a game.
Yeah.
I mean, no hyperbole when I say I got choked up walking into Citizens Bank Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
That's my biggest moment as a fan this year, was just getting back to a game.
Yeah, I think it was for just about all of us. So we kind of lucked out in 2020 because we were down here going to spring training literally right before COVID hit. So it was like we got home and then within 2 days it was all shut down. Like I specifically remember Wilson and I, my son, we gave kind of like a spring training trip report in our first episode back. And previously, like at the beginning of that episode, we were talking about, like I mentioned that it felt like the snap from Avengers Infinity War.
Yes.
Because everything was gone. You don't know when it's coming back, if or when, because there's so many unknowns. And this year, getting to walk into it, and then, we moved down here from Idaho, we moved down to Phoenix, and I was like, man, this is really like upsetting because we live like 15 minutes from Chase Field. So the plan was, when we move, let's go to a bunch of baseball games. Well, we can't, and so here we were this year. Spring training came rolling around again this year, and tickets were so hard to get. We somehow got in the window. We got tickets. We got to go to a spring training game, and my son didn't quite grasp it. Like he had been going to school hybrid, like online, then hybrid, and everything up to that point. So he kind of knew what was going on, but it didn't really click. And me walking through the stadium, and I told him, I was like, Wilson, we have to watch the first pitch. I was like, I don't care if we're at the playground, I don't care what we're doing. I was like, we have to watch the first pitch. He's like, okay, Dad. And just like watching that first pitch being thrown live for me, I was like, man, like it's unreal. It's crazy. And then Brig was in town, and he took me to the game when the Cubs were here. It was right after the All-Star break. And it was my first time in a big league stadium since 2015.
Wow.
So that was awesome as well. That was a really cool thing that like he wanted to go walk around. I was like, no, dude, I just want to sit in my seat. I haven't gotten to watch a regular season big league game in a long time. And so I could tell he's a little bugged by that, but it was fine. It worked out. It was fun. It was awesome.
For us, I didn't regret rolling our tickets from 2020 into 2021. And I'm so glad I did because we had awesome seats. I got to take my dad to a game, and he's not a Phillies fan, but he used to go to Phillies games because we're from Pennsylvania. So it's cool to take him to his first game at Citizens Bank Park. He's never been there before.
That's cool.
Take my daughter for the first time since she was 1 to a Phil's game. Like,
that's awesome.
To see Wheeler pitch a complete game was just like the icing on the cake that day.
That's so cool. And I think you're right, though. Like, I think for a lot of us, that is the biggest moment of the season. It was just getting to get back in the stadium, just getting to go after a year of not being able to, and not really knowing when we were going to again. And it's something that it's like we didn't realize we needed until we didn't have it.
Right. We took it for granted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it was funny too, because we lived in Utah and Idaho for a lot of years, and the only time we would go to games is when we went up and visited my dad. And I take that back. It was October 2016. I was at the game when the Mariners got eliminated from postseason contention in the 2016 season. So I'm sorry, that was the last time I went. It's brutal. It's a brutal game. But still, I mean, at that point it had been almost 5 years. And I had never in my life gone 5 years between big league games. So that was a pretty big deal. It was really cool to get back. But baseball family, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. That is our wrap up for the 2021 season, I guess you could say. But let us know. We want to hear from you. What were some of your surprises, some of your letdowns? What was the biggest moment for you? Did you get to go to a game this year? And did you get to have that just outstanding experience getting back to a stadium after having not been able to for an entire season? Was there anything else that stood out to you about the season? Let us know. You can jump in the mailbag. There's a link in the doobly-doo down below, or you can go to baseballtogether.com. It's always in the navigation. If you prefer, you can leave us a voicemail. There is a link in the description of every episode to do that as well. And with that, don't forget to hop on the shop. That's right. I said it. Hop on the shop. I said it once again. Where we have lots of awesome stuff. Jason is repping our 9+Us logo hat tonight. Awesome, Jason. That's the Flex Fit, right?
It is the Flex Fit, yeah.
Flex Fit. I've got my Heather Gray perfect hat with my Heroes Get Remembered, but Legends Never Die Heather Blue t-shirt. Super comfortable. I love this shirt. It's outstanding.
It's the shirt my wife stole from me that I've never worn after wearing it once. So
there you go. There you go. And the wives only steal the most comfortable shirts. Am I right?
Shirts, hoodies,
Yeah. So hop on 9plusus.com, NINEPLUS.com. We have sweatshirts and we have hoodies getting you ready for the cold season. I'm probably going to be getting one here pretty soon, even though I'll only wear it for like 2 months. But that's neither here nor there. But anyway, baseball family, thank you again for joining us. Also, Jason, thank you so much for joining me again this week. Really appreciate it.
Always. I'll jump in.
Appreciate you. And with that, baseball family, we will catch you next week.